Wow, it's time for another show full of tips and ideas from the sales growth leadership expert, Dean Akers. Known for his experience in hyper-growing companies and creating cultures for high-performance teams, here's Dean.
Well, welcome to your weekly Sales and Leadership Ninja Show. I'm your head ninja, Dean Akers, and every week I bring you a rant to stimulate your thinking in the realms of sales and or leadership. Today's show is going to be a little bit of a twist. It's kind of because I'm hearing all this shouting on the TVs and stuff and everything about all the craziness going on now. And so many people are shouting out how they're not given a chance, they're being discriminated against. It doesn't matter whether it's race, age, gender, sexual preference. People are just shouting out about how unfair everything is. And today I'd like to share three fundamentals that I've helped so many people with, including myself, over the last, I'm going to say, I'll just call it 68 years. I know I wasn't doing it when I was a kid, but I'm 68 years old, and this has made a big difference. And what I found is that when the people take ownership of these three things, it changes that dialogue of being discriminated against. Whether it's race, age, gender, and sexual preference. And the only reason I know it is I've had the blessing to work with and around a lot of people of every race, a lot of people of every age, both genders, and people with all different sexual preferences. So today I'd really like to visit on what the common denominator is in both the victim and the successes, because believe it or not, the common denominator is just a difference in the two of them. It's just a polar opposite. So that's why I'd like to share this today. And when you ponder what I'm sharing, you may ask where you fall in this challenge. And I think as you reflect back on the three things I'm going to share with you today, they're pretty indefensible. In other words, when you start really analyzing it, I've met people that have come out of poverty, they've gone on to be multimillionaires. I met any race, gender, sexual preference that are very successful financially. And even when they're not successful financially, they're very successful with their inner self, because finances does not always define the success. So it's three major things that I've found over my career that make the biggest difference. It first starts out with positive self-talk. It starts out with positive self-talk. And I can tell you that, I wrote a book, Self-Talk, Think Like a Child. And, when you deal with positive self-talk, it's not about saying everything is perfect, but it's about creating an attitude of gratitude and a positive self-talk that'll make a big difference. And I always love my favorite stories. My two other brothers and I, talking about self-talk is and positive self-talk or negative self-talk. It was a Christmas, and my grandfather asked us for our Christmas lifts. And my one brother asked for a 10-speed bike. My other brother asked for a 3-speed bike and said, "Oh, you're crazy, Granddaddy will never get you a 10-speed bike." And of course, I joined in right then and said, "I'm going to get a 5-speed because I know he might get me a 5-speed. I wanted a 10-speed. We all wanted a 10-speed, but I knew he could probably get me a 5-speed. And then my one brother, as I said, put on his list a 10-speed. So it's Christmas morning. My grandfather's sitting in his big chair, and he goes to the Christmas tree, and there's envelopes there, and we open them up. There's a string attached, and it goes out the back door and around a bunch of trees and around the yard and all the way to the front and to the garage door. And then they pushed the garage door button where the strings all ended between my three brothers, and the garage door opened up. And sure as you can imagine, there was a 10-speed bike, a 5-speed bike, and a 3-speed bike. That was a game-changing day for me in positive self-talk or self-talk. All three of us has self-talked ourselves into believing what would happen, and in fact it did happen. And so when I talk about positive self-talk, so many of the people I'm hearing on the TVs and everything, they're talking about negative self-talk. They're telling about how they're the victims, and they're not working out and trying to figure out how to talk positively or create expectations. I assure you that morning when I saw that 10-speed bike, I was upset. My brother with a 3-speed bike was even more upset. Now, while we all went, oh, thank you, Granddaddy, thank you, we were really had a lesson on self-talk. Of course, you've already established that. You didn't even try when you do negative self-talk. So I'm going to tell you that in sales, I see it all the time. I've had salespeople I'll say, well, how are you doing with this account you're chasing? And they go, oh, they're not going to buy from me. And I go, well, why won't they? Well, they won't meet with me. And I say, so when you went there, they said no. Well, I haven't been there. Again, it's like the 3-speed, 5-speed, 10-speed. I promise you, the person will never, ever meet you if you don't go there. So they've already established that they're not going to get met, and they've talked themselves through self-talk that they're not going to get met. And guess what? They don't get met. And oh, by the way, they don't get the sales. And then, oh, by the way, it's the fault of the market, the economy, competition, everything else. So positive self-talk is the first fundamental. The second one, which is huge, and I have more fun with this when I do speaking engagements, is this: the person in the mirror. And I have these little handouts I give people. It's called the $5 solution. It's almost comical when I'm doing a speaking engagement, because I said I can cure all your problems and all your issues with business and personal, and if you're being discriminated against, all the things I can cure with one thing, and it's $10 or $5, I mean. And they go, well, what is it? And I give them this. I said, I'm actually going to give it to you free. And it's comical because they'll start looking at it. They look it over, and it says $5 on the front. You can see it if you're watching video today. And then they open it. And the minute they open it, it's like, oh, my gosh. So they understand immediately that they're accountable to themselves. You are accountable to YOU. That's the person you're accountable to. When you're accountable to YOU, guess what? The people you're accountable to above you or around you or that rely on you will have no issue with accountability, because when you're accountable for you and to you, everything goes right for you and for those around you. I've found that in every case, the bigger you have so much impact on you than the stuff you're talking about or blaming times 10. When you take ownership and you look in the mirror and you really, really own it, you're going to find your whole life change. Then lastly, and this is one of my favorite things, is eliminating excuse. I actually created this, and again, if you're on video today, I actually created the excuse box. And this box you can see if you're watching today, it's an old card shoe, and I've had this thing for probably 35 years. And it was funny because when I would have meetings and people would be late, and I go, why are you late? And they go, oh, traffic, there was an accident and all this stuff. And you wonder yourself, they drive that same interstate every day. And when you watch the traffic, almost every day there's an accident. So if you really want to be somewhere on time, you obviously would think you would kind of allow for a major screw up. But these same people are always late. These same people are always having excuses, always blaming. So what we did was our team, we came out and I said, okay, here's the new deal. I'm over the excuses. Everybody has excuses. It's so funny to listen to excuses. If you want to just sit around and listen to people's excuses, it is comical what they come up with. And usually they'll have an excuse, and then the next thing they say totally defies that excuse. For instance, if they're late, and then you go, well, what would happen if you had a jet that you were going to be a private jet where they said we're leaving at 5 a.m. in the morning, prompt, no matter what, and the jet's going to take you to Europe, and you're going to stay in a castle for a week, all expenses paid, and we're going to give you 10 grand. Do you think the traffic would keep you from being late then? You know the answer. I don't even need to say it. So the excuse box is very, very powerful. And what the excuse box is we just, when somebody goes to create an excuse, and they do it to me too, is you draw one out. And we've written our 5 favorite excuses. Here's one, the one I just drew out. My mom had to go to the dentist. That's written on that one. Somebody had written that a while back. The second one, someone stole it. That's as good an excuse as any other one. Here's one. Didn't do one. So what we find is as we draw excuses out, they're about as good as the one you're going to give anyway. So don't worry about it. And quit making excuses. I mean, they're unflattering, they're unproductive, and it makes you a victim. And that's where everybody talks about discrimination and I don't have a fair shot and all that stuff. So let's just do a quick review. I want you to think about what we've talked about today and ask yourself, am I creating a positive self-talk? Am I truly creating positive self-talk? And just if you want, record yourself for a day and listen to those times you actually negative self-talk. And as you develop the skills of positive self-talk, you'll watch things in your life get much better. Do you own the person in the mirror? Are you blaming your boss? Are you blaming competition? Are you blaming coronavirus? Are you blaming all these various things? Are you owning the person in the mirror? Are you owning that person in the mirror? And then you want to find out, are you eliminating your excuses? Listen to yourself. Are you making excuses? And if you create positive self-talk, own the person in the mirror, and eliminate excuses, your life will suddenly become much more fair. Mysteriously, you'll all of a sudden be given all the breaks. You'll have immense success no matter your race, age, gender, or sexual preference. So I challenge you, create positive self-talk, own that person in the mirror, and eliminate your excuses. And also, have a great week. This is Dean. Thanks for tuning in each week. And remember to share if this helps you. Let your friends in on it. My book, Self-Talk, Think Like a Child, spot on that this week. It's available on Amazon. You can order it right on the internet. And if you ever have a question about one of our shows, just email me at help@adjunctco.com. That's help@adjunctco.com. And I'll be glad to get back and help you. So again, create positive self-talk, own the person in the mirror, and eliminate those excuses, and watch your life turn into the most magnificent life you could ever imagine. Have a great week.
We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Subscribe today to our podcast and send questions or thoughts to help@deanakers.com. Also, visit us at www.deanakers.com to listen to prior shows and view helpful videos. Also, great tips to download. Thanks again. See you next week.